Auto Reverse is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Auto reverse.
And welcome to Auto Reverse, a show where we do a deep dive into hip-hop's most influential mixtapes. I'm your host, DJ Ryan Fresh. And we're barreling our way through Season 2. Today's mixtape is Tapes, Skills, Techniques by the 1200 Hobos. Also happens to be Corey's favorite mixtape. It's funny that 8 episodes in, we're finally taking a look at a Midwest DJ collective in the 1200 Hobos. When you look at some of the bigger names of Midwest hip-hop, let's say Common and Kanye, their touring DJs have been Mr. Sinister of the X-Men and A-Track, respectively. And yet, while all this was happening in Cleveland, where the 1200 Hobos are from, you had this collective of DJs, graffiti writers, MCs, and B-boys who are just like in this sort of self-contained universe that all supported each other. In fact, the 1200 Hobos themselves are often linked to the world-famous Scribble Jam battle. And if you go beyond that, they have alliances with rhymesayers from Minneapolis, as well as Anacon. It goes without saying that we could call the 1200 Hobos the underground kings of the Midwest. And with all that said, let's get into the story of the 1200 Hobos mixtape, Tapes, Skills, Techniques.
Yo, there's one thing I gotta ask a question before this all starts. Is there some real original hip-hop motherfuckers in the house? Say, oh!
One time for your mind, one time. Yeah, whatever. One time for your mind, one time. Yo, whatever. One time for your mind, one time. Hey, yo, hey, yo.
When we talk about prominent DJ crews, our minds immediately go to the big three, the X-Men, ISP, and the Beat Junkies. From there, we can splinter off to the groups who often dominated battles: Fifth Platoon, Supernatural Turntable Artists, Immortal Fader Fighters. Then there's a crew like the 1200 Hobos. Based out of Cincinnati, the Hobos were anchored by top-notch DJs like Mr. Dibbs, John Doe, DJ Signify, DJ Mayonnaise, DJ Fingas, and the likes of Dose 1 and 6-2, and probably a bunch more that I'm missing. In fact, according to Mr. Dibbs' Wikipedia page, the 1200 Hobos were made up of as many as 23 people at one point.
Me and DJ Skip decided to do this mixtape thing. We did what we did, and somebody asked us from Rap Pages. We were going to be in Rap Pages. They asked, "What are you called?" 1200 Hobos? And that was that. A lot of cats are hobos. They don't have to fly the flag. It's like a secret society of DJs, B-boys, writers, and MCs.
Like a few other DJs that we've talked about on the show before, my introduction to the 1200 Hobos came via the Return of the DJ series, specifically the song B-Boy's Revenge 96, Porkopolis Turntable Jazz on Volume 2. The 1200 Hobos 1996 scratch and production opus, Tapes, Skills, Techniques, is a chaotic collage of team routines, pause mix cuts, and grimy remixes. In turntablism, conspiracies and left-of-center thinking was the norm, but the 1200 Hobos took that weirdness, cranked it up to 13, and sprinkled their raw Midwest aesthetic all over it. And I mean that in the best way possible.
Bring the motherfucking rocket! Bring the motherfucking...
All your other DJs, move back, motherfucker. All your other DJs are a bunch of jerks.
The Hobos.
Give them an example how a DJ works.
This style that was as well-rounded as all get out would influence future Hobo member John Doe.
I was even more blown away when I realized it was by someone here in Cincinnati. A lot of the ideas of it were the kind of ideas that I had wanted to put out myself. Listening to tape skills, techniques, meeting Mr. Dibbs and hearing his other work like Turntable Scientifics, and watching DMC tapes also influenced me.
Why do you choose to mimic these whack MCs? Why do you choose to listen to R&B? Why must you believe that something is fact just because it's played on the radio 20 times per day?
One more as these MCs act like they don't know. Don't mean to be blunt, but don't front. Don't mean to be blunt, but don't front. Don't mean to be blunt, but don't front. Don't front, 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 front. Don't mean to be blunt, but don't front. I'm doing it for the love, so now I'm doing what I want. Don't mean to be blunt, but don't front. I'm doing it for the love, so now I'm spark mad.
Despite having an immense amount of skill, no pun intended, it seemed to me that the Hobos were often overlooked in the crew conversations. In hindsight, I think a lot of it had to do with visibility. The dominant DJ crews that we were most inspired by were, regionally, not far. Trading tapes with someone who lives in California often resulted in sampling a lot of what that area of the US had to offer. By the time I got a copy of Tapes, Skills, Techniques, it was a third or fourth generation dub from God knows where, and it was about a year and a half after it had come out.
Honestly, one of my influences came from hearing mixtapes that weren't very good. I would hear the other tapes and think, why didn't they do this, scratch this, or put this underneath this? It made me want to create something 10 times better, 100 times better if I could. There was a time when blend tapes were big. Rare groove and sample tapes seemed to be pretty big, and scratch tapes were pretty big. I wanted to do all three, and I guess that's what I was trying to do, put all three of them together in one really good package.
Side A is heavy on scratching and beat juggling and just layers upon layers of the most random left turns. At the time when I first heard it, I was attracted to the organized chaos of it all. Additionally, the Hobos themselves were largely a mystery to me. Mr. Dibbs was the most visible member, later going on to join Atmosphere as Slug's touring DJ, though the real treat for me was with the Unearthed Break record series. There are signature samples all over this, and the Hobos' later tape Evolution, as well as Mr. Dibbs' own Turntable Scientifics. Dibbs put some of these samples on a series of scratch records, which I still love to this day. It's the most random grouping of sound effects, drum drops, and beats, but that's what makes it incredibly irresistible. Side B of the tape is all remixes, and this is where the Hobos, I feel, should have been spotlighted more. There's a lot of self-produced remixes on this side, and they're all worthy of getting dropped during a 90s hip-hop night in 2019. Mobb Deep Shook Ones Part 2, Common Sense's Resurrection, and Nas's It Ain't Hard to Tell are among the many tracks that get the Hobo treatment.
Are you ready for your primetime workout?
It ain't hard to tell. I excel, then prevail. The mic is contacted, I attract clientele. My mic check is life or death, breathing a sniper's breath. I exhale the yellow smoke of Buddha through righteous steps, deep like the shining, sparkle like a diamond, sneak a Uzi on the Allen, and my army jacket lining hit the earth like a comet invasion. Nazis like the Afro-Central Asian, half man, half amazing. Cause in my physical, I can't express too strong. Delete stress like moon trend, then extend strong. I drink my wet with Medusa, give us shotguns in hell. From the spliff that I lift and inhale, it ain't hard to tell.
Dirty bear. Dirty bear. Dirty bear. Dirty activate.
The Buddha monks in your trunk, turn the bass up. Turn the bass up. Turn the bass up. The Buddha monks in your trunk, turn the bass up. Not stories by Aesop. Place your loot up, parties I shoot up.
These guys have been holding the breadbasket hostage since 1993-94.
We talked about where Dibbs landed, but I'd be remiss to not mention that many of the other members, like Dose 1 and 6-2 for example, went on to join the hugely influential Andacon.
the pinnacle of college radio weirdo rap in the 2000s. No matter how far the individual members got from hip-hop, there's always this common ground where they dug their heels in and kicked random Wu-Tang and Biggie samples all over your boombox's speakers.
And that's it for today's episode of Auto Reverse. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. And shout outs to DJ City, who hosted a DJ networking mixer event here in Seattle this week. I stopped by for a little bit and got to hang out with some great friends and met some new DJs from around the area. So that was pretty cool. I hope they make this a regular event here in Seattle. As per usual, if you like the video, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, or make a comment. I'd like to hear what you guys want to see in future episodes of Auto Reverse, or just want to see in the channel in general. Additionally, you can follow me on these social media platforms, where you can keep abreast of wherever I'm DJing in the greater Seattle area, as well as new mixes that I have coming up. Speaking of which, you can also book me here at this email. But truly, that's it for now. Thank you for joining me on Autoverse, and I will check you guys next time. Peace.